So far, this big Crash and Spyro revival has been great. Both trilogy remakes have been fantastic, and while I still have issues with the microtransactions later added into CTR Nitro Fueled, I still think the base game is a great remake of the PS1 kart racer. But I knew they weren't going to remake the post-PS1 stuff, nor did I really think they should. There were a few bright spots in both series, but a majority of people would say after the original creators left both series, their glory days were far behind them. So I was waiting to see what Activision's first fully new original game with this revival would be, and we got that answer with Crash 4, It's About Time. Which pretty much knocks Wrath of Cortex out of the way like it wasn't even there. But strangely, this wasn't being done by Vicarious Visions, the ones who did the Crash and Sane trilogy. Instead, it was being handled by Toys for Bob, who did Spyro Reignited. I mean, they did a fantastic job with Spyro, don't get me wrong, but it did feel kind of odd that VV didn't get the chance to make the brand new Crash title. Especially because they proved they know Crash level design with the new level added into Crash Warped, Future Tense. But the game is out, and with a review copy provided by Activision, thanks guys, let's see what this new era of Bandicoot has in store. Also on a side note, I'll only be showing stuff that was in the trailers for the game as it's brand new, so don't worry about spoilers. So the game picks up right at the end of Crash 3, with Entropy and Cortex breaking free of their time prison and now plan on conquering all dimensions and time. And now Crash and Coco must travel across time and space in order to put a stop to the Doctors. Along the way, they'll find new masks that grant the duo powers, alternate dimension versions of characters like Tana, and old enemies like Dingodile and maybe a few more. I'll let you figure that one out on your own. First off, huge points already for being a direct sequel to Warped, like how each game in the trilogy started at the last game's ending. That's a super nice touch, unlike Wrath of Cortex where it just kind of happens at some point. But the story is simple and straight to the point. There aren't many twists and such, but it's a fun romp and pretty great fan service bits by the end. I can't say them because spoilers, but oh, it's good. What also helps is great comedic moments. I was laughing in this game far more than I expected, from the general writing, interactions, and levels, hearing stuff I never thought would get into an E10 plus game, this section if you get all the fruit, you'll thank me later, and animation gags. I was thoroughly entertained throughout, and speaking of that animation, whoa. The animation and artistry in the Spyro remix was one of my biggest pros about that game, and it's here in full force. The animation is so expressive, there's a lot of squash and stretch, the casts have never moved this great before, and the models and environments all do a great job selling their own dimensions, and make the game have a consistent joy to see what was lurking in the next level. Easily the best looking game in the franchise, which is saying something because Insane wasn't even that long ago. So level structure is a bit similar to Crash 1, where you have a linear level layout with about 3 to 4 main stages for an area, a couple of alternate timeline stages where you get to play as another character that affects something in the main levels, and sometimes a boss fight at the end of the area. You can also play the game in Classic or Modern mode. Classic just being like the original trilogy, but Modern makes it so you have infinite lives. It doesn't really matter so much because there's a lot of Wampa fruit that you can get lives easily, but I like the option, and since I personally don't view lives as that necessary nowadays, I went with Modern, which is what the game recommends by the way. For the main gameplay, it's a return to how things were back in the PS1 days, running down levels both 3D and 2D, breaking every box imaginable, but quite a bit has been added. First off, you can play as either Crash or Coco in any level of the game, and can swap on the map screen. It's merely cosmetic, so go nuts. And the two have the double jump from Crash 3 by default now. They also have a drop shadow that's present at all times by this circle, and this is straight up one of the best things about the whole game, I'm not even joking. This helps so much when the depth perception might be kinda tricky, and lets me know with confidence that I'm going to bounce on a box right. Awesome addition that needs to be in every game moving forward. Anyway, the two can also grind on rails, being able to go on the top or bottom to grab collectibles, parkour on certain walls, and their big new gameplay elements involve these masks. They give the Bandicoots special powers for certain sections, like phasing objects in and out of reality, time manipulation, gravity control, and basically the Death Tornado spin from Crash 3, allowing them to go over huge gaps. You can't really bring these outside of their areas, so the parts they show up in levels are made with that mask in mind. They do a great job adding into the variety of platforming, and no section ever feels like it's too long with them, and they actively start challenging you with them more as the game goes on. One section in particular near the end of the game does something really cool with them, but I'm gonna leave that one as a surprise. To talk about the levels themselves, there's so much fun to run through, and each has unique types of platforming and obstacles to go through that make each world stand out. Some of my favorites were the Pirate World for its ship-to-ship platforming, the New Orleans level with the giant festival, this might be my favorite trope in the game, the Mad Max-like desert, an ancient temple guarded by dragon spirits. The game is wonderful at making every level fun to traverse through, and they each play with their setting to the fullest extent. But Crash and Coco aren't the only ones along for the ride. In those alternate timeline stages I mentioned before, you get 3 other characters to play with. Cortex, who uses his blaster to change enemies in the platforms and has a dash he can use in midair. Dingodile, who can use his vacuum to suck up crates, use TNT to blow up obstacles, and hover for a short period. And Tanya, who can use a grappling hook to attack enemies from afar, pull herself to certain points, and can wall jump. I'll admit, Cortex and Dingodile are just okay. They have their moments here and there, but their general gameplay isn't nearly as fun as the base game, and their sections feel more drawn out. They also have a nasty habit of awkward box placement, or way too many boxes, but we'll get more into that in a bit. But Tanya, oh Tanya! She is easily the best of the 3. Her gameplay feels much closer to what you do with Crash and Coco, but with her own twist, which is how it should be. Her grappling hook is great for making her feel different, her level design I just think is more fun, and her more weighty platforming makes landing platforming sequences with her feel so satisfying. It feels a lot like Donkey Kong Country if I could put it anyway. I hope she stays around for the series because I really love this gameplay style. Now, in a change for the series, there aren't any crystals to grab this time. It's all gems, and before, some levels would have only 1 or 2. Now there's 6 to collect in each level. 3 are for collecting a certain percentage of Wampa Fruit, 1 is the normal break all the boxes gem, 1 is for not dying 3 or more times, and a final secret gem hidden somewhere off the beaten path. Now, making it clear, they are in no way required to progress through the game, and the ending doesn't really change for getting them all, other than a tiny sneak peek of the possible next game, so you're not missing too much by skipping these. But there is an incentive to get them all, because when you get 6 gems in a stage, you can unlock a new skin for Crash or Coco that can be used in any level. These can be relating to the different themes of the levels, references to previous games like Biker Crash or even their PS1 models. I will never get tired of seeing low poly models in HD environments. I love this trend. But these costumes are an awesome incentive for mastering the game's levels and provide a more immediate reward than previously. When you think about it, besides the color gems, there really wasn't much a reward for getting the other gems outside the better ending. But here with the skins, I see the reward immediately, and I want to get these skins because I can use them anywhere. And don't worry, you only need to get 6 gems for the stage in total, either by getting all 6 in the normal stage, and getting the rest in the new inverted mode. Think of these like a fancy mirror mode of a level that have a drastically different art style. So you have plenty of reason to go back into levels this time to grab all the gems for both versions of the stage. There are also inverse version of bosses, though admittingly I couldn't figure out what was really different with these guys, but beating them in inverse gets you a costume, so I did them for basically a free skin. And also because I think these are some of the best bosses in the series, with exception to Embryo, his fight was just okay. But a lot of these bosses are extended platforming challenges, with brief openings to attack and have a great sense of energy and keep you on your toes. Shoutouts to the final boss in particular, which was easily the best final boss in the series, hands down. There's also the returning time relics that are the Crash version of a time trial, and new to this game are flashback tapes. If you make it to one of these in a level without dying, you unlock a new challenge level that are set in the testing period of Crash and Coco's experimental process, which are a fun challenge. So yeah, there's a lot to do in Crash 4. You're gonna be on this one for a while if you plan on getting it all. But it does come with a cost. I've been avoiding it for a while. Let's talk boxes. So Crash 4 in general is a little harder than 2 and 3, I'd say in terms of its base design. Going through it normally, you should be fine, and for your first time through, that's honestly what I recommend. Because 100%ing this game turns it into an entirely different beast. You remember how Cold Hard Crash from Crash 2 was one of the most annoying levels because of all the stipulations you needed to go through in a specific order to get everything? And it had that one really evil box placement, you know the one. Well, I'm guessing Toys for Bob really liked that level because that stuff is all over the place. I know it's kind of a joke in Crash, but I have never missed the box gem by one box more times than here, and it's for a number of reasons. Those box placements that I talked about are hidden on top of jumping crates outside your camera's point of view, and many have only one shot to get them, which leads me to jumping everywhere as high as possible, so I end up getting paranoid in every stage, which can really kill the pacing at sometimes. And they love hiding boxes in areas that blend in too much with their surroundings. Tanya's level in the desert world, I can't tell you how many times I passed by this box because I straight up didn't see it. There are also too many do or die scenarios, like I just mentioned the bouncing boxes, but rail grinding is also pretty bad at it. Not only because switching from top to bottom rail has a bit of delay, making the required timing a lot more precise, but in 3D parts you also need to worry about where you lean. And this is an issue because of the dynamic camera. The depth perception from it will harm your judgment, and because these are on rails, you only get one shot. If you miss it, that's a death and back to the beginning of the section. Stages also get really long in Crash 4, which again is fine casually, but when you're going through a 30-minute level and only miss one box, that gets a special kind of infuriating. Not to mention it makes the less than 3 deaths gem quite a bit harder than expected. You'll most likely have to do an all box run and then a no death run in order to get everything. And probably the biggest one for me, box totals in this game are way too high. I can't think of a stage that didn't have a total at least over 100, and some get way too big, especially with characters like Dingodile, who have astronomically high numbers. The worst 2 levels in my experience were Run It By You and No Dillo Dallying, which conveniently are 2 levels that connect through the timelines. The stages are really long, so many easy to miss boxes, both have an auto-scroller with a boat that's way too tight in terms of the timing, and then a jetboard section that has way too many easy to miss boxes. And in No Dillo Dallying's case, there's over 500 boxes. And the horror stories I've seen from friends on Discord and Twitter kind of sums it all up. They went overboard with the requirements this time. And I can't tell if this is just because this was Toys for Bob's first attempt with Crash, because I didn't have these problems with Future Tense when Vicarious Visions made that stage. But these box requirements are why I recommend playing the game on Modern, because there are way too many instances where you will need to die on purpose to make sure you get everything. And honestly, because of all this, I think 100%ing this game might make it the hardest Crash game in the franchise. And even then, the game has you replay stages a lot, not only for gems, inverted mode, and relics, but also timeline stages. You play as that extra character at first, but after the part they help in, you then control Crash and Coco for the rest of the level, doing basically the same thing as the normal stage. So if you include the normal stage, the timeline stage, and both inverted modes, that means you're basically playing the same part of the stage 4 times at minimum, and that's without time relics being accounted for. But I should stress, most of these issues are when you're trying to go for 100%, which is in no way required. But if you're just playing the game normally, the game is fantastic. It's a great blend of what made Crash successful in his heyday, while still adding new ideas to the formula to make it feel fresh. I don't think I would put this over 2 or 3, but it's easily the best post-Naughty Dog Crash game in the franchise by a long shot, and definitely earns the 4 in its title. I probably would rank it above Crash 1 in terms of just playing it through. If you're new to the series, I would still recommend starting with Insane Trilogy first. It's cheaper for starters, and in terms of completion, it's not as demanding. But after that, this should totally be your next destination, and if you want to go for everything, you got your work cut out for you. This is a Crash fans Crash game, let's put it like that. And now I'm even more excited to see where this series will go from here. Crash is back, and he's making sure he stays this time. Thanks for watching. You guys planning on picking up Crash 4 for yourself? Let me know in the comments. If you like what you saw, check out some of the other videos you see on here, or you can support me by going to my Patreon. Anyway, got a lot of work to do this month, so I'll catch you next time.